All right. Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's tournament strategy show where we are going to look back at last night's slate. Then we're going to look at today's slate. We have a gigantic 10-gamer with a lot of injury news, a lot of value. We'll get to all of that, but we'll start off by just looking at last night's slate. For me, it wasn't the best, was not great, was a negative night, but we hit on quite a few things. I think my biggest weakness from last night was I played a 20 max contest. I've been playing 150 max for most of this season, and I needed to be a bit more aggressive. So, like, Tyrese Maxey was a leverage play for us yesterday. I think I had, a 10, 15% min on him. Probably should have done 30. Yeah, and that would have made the night much better. Dante DiVincenzo, we matched the field on. Josh Hart, we matched the field on. We did that on the pre-lock show. This was the nuts lineup from last night, by the way. Jalen Johnson, we had exposure to. I didn't love chasing Jalen Johnson, but he did fine. He didn't really crush it. It's funny, on the pre-lock show, we talked about how it wouldn't shock me if we see the nuts lineup end up being a balanced build, and that's exactly what we saw last night. Cam Whitmore wasn't awful, but you really didn't need value or too much value outside of like Moses Moody. But you didn't really need any of the expensive guys either on yesterday's slate. So was an interesting one. Tracy Jackson Davis, we forced exposure to once we got the Kuminga news, so that wasn't a surprise. Moses Moody, I wasn't on. He was just a value piece that made this line work. PJ Washington, you guys, if you were watching yesterday's show at this time, I Need Money, he called PJ Washington and that crushed. And PJ Washington had some ownership, so it wasn't super sneaky, but good call by him. I didn't force exposure to PJ Washington, so I don't believe he showed up naturally, but that happened. And then Isaiah Hartenstein made it in there as well. So, like I said, we hit on the low-owned play that almost no one had. Hit on Fox too, but just not enough. But, did I go out? Looks like it's trying to load my screen. Hopefully it comes back up here soon. But, all right, there we go. So, for these games, let's go ahead and jump right into them, see what we're dealing with today. We'll start off with the Portland Trailblazers going up against the Washington Wizards. For the Trailblazers tonight, they're still missing a lot of the guys who have been out for a while. Justin Minaya is questionable. Ibo Baji is questionable. Doesn't really matter too much just because of all of their main pieces that are out. And the thing that we like about the Trailblazers, even more than the injuries, is just this extremely soft matchup going up against the Wizards. DeAndre Ayton, neither of these teams have jack shit to play for, but they're still playing for their jobs. They're still, I think Jordan Poole in particular is trying to boost his numbers up a little bit. So we're still going to want some exposure to this game. DeAndre Ayton at 8K in a soft matchup is nice. 30% ownership. Ideally, I'll be close to field weight. Depending on how the rest of the slate plays out, I don't really want Ayton as a core play, but he makes a lot of sense at 8K. And in this soft matchup, Baton was standing out a lot for me in the sim model, so I'll make sure I'm close with him. Jabari Walker makes me nervous. He's had a tough matchup against Orlando he did pretty well in, where he was relatively cheap. And then he smashed against the Hornets, I believe. And then now he has another soft matchup. I'm not going to overthink it here. Sim model still likes Jabari Walker. He's been playing a crap ton of minutes. And so as long as that continues to be the case because of the injuries that they have, I'm willing to go back to him here. But again, another guy I don't want to go too crazy on just because there is a little bit of risk involved there. And then Rupert's not showing up too much for me, but if he does show up in a few lines, that's fine. We have a lot of value on this slate. We are not lacking in that department. So we'll, of course, on the pre-lock show, we'll kind of organize that a bit more. Whereas on this show, I'll just point out some of the viable value options and we'll go from there. Because it's a bit nuts. It's just that time of year, you know. We're gonna have games like that. Other side of this for the Wizards tonight, they are missing Kyle Kuzma is out. Tyus Jones is out. That automatically makes me more interested in Jordan Poole, who's been in really good form and again has a soft matchup going up against the Trailblazers. Corey Kispert also stands out a bit for me. We know he's more involved when guys like Kuzma's out. Denny Avdia is still playing. Avdia feels like he's priced appropriately. You can definitely take a shot on him. There's upside there, we know. But there's just other pieces I like on this 10-game slate a little bit more than Avdia. Holmes is questionable. He's showing up a little bit for me currently. So is Jarrett Butler. So those are potential value options as well. For the Thunder, of course, our guy, I feel like I jinxed them a little bit. I used to always say, of course, the Thunder are healthy because they've been healthy so much this season. But not today. Not today. SGA and Jalen Williams are both still out. They've been out for a while now, so that's not dramatic. Well, Jalen Williams is doubtful. He's doubtful. Let me refresh to make sure this is completely updated. Yeah, so SGA is out. Jalen Williams is doubtful. So more than likely, they're both going to be out. Josh Giddey, his price tag has started to increase a little bit. I like him tonight, though, in this matchup against the Pacers. Of course, it's the highest total game because it's a matchup against the Pacers, play at a very fast pace. That keeps me interested in guys like Josh Giddey. We know Giddey can be risky just because his minutes are a little volatile, even with SGA out. But because of the game environment, because he's relatively low owned, 10%, I'm willing to make sure I force exposure to him on this slate. Chet, I'm interested in, but I am not going to force exposure to Chet unless Miles Turner gets ruled out. He's questionable currently. Lou Dort is fine, but I'm not going to force exposure to him. I think there's better value plays with more upside. Aaron Wiggins, Cason Wallace, they're showing up naturally for me in my early lines, so I'm not going to need to force exposure there, hopefully, but they make sense. Aaron Wiggins, Cason Wallace, they've had strong performances. You can even look at guys like Isaiah Joe, but he's priced a little bit too high, in my opinion. For me, Cason Wallace is the priority here, and Josh Giddey. Outside of that, I'm just going to trust the DS on it. That's one of the things, like, as the season progresses and as you know less of the names, the more I start to lean on the optimizer. And you'll see what I'm talking about when we get to that Memphis game where they're just missing everybody. For the Pacers, we talked about the big piece of news. Miles Turner is questionable. We'll wait and see what happens there. We know if he sits, Jalen Smith or it seems like Jalen Smith is really the main guy who's going to start in that role. Because the matchup's decent, and again, this is the highest total game, at 5,100, he's a little bit more expensive. If Miles Turner is out, Jalen Smith becomes a priority or whoever starts in that spot, in that center spot. Halliburton's been in a bit better form lately. Want to match the field on him. Some model also liked Halliburton a bit as well, so that kept me on the train of keeping playing him. And then if Turner's out, Siakam gets a nice boost for me as well. First two games are good. We're about to go through a little bit of a drought, though. For the Magic tonight, they're going up against the Hornets, which means they have a very soft matchup, but slow-paced game. Magic are healthy. Hard to get overly excited about anyone. Those of you who have been watching all season, you already know Wendell Carter Jr. is going to be a leverage play for me here, and he's extremely low owned, so it's not going to be hard to get over the field there. Bigs against the Hornets is really the main thought process there. Paolo is also viable. I like to play Paolo Banchero in soft matchups, but I'm still back and forth on it, to be honest. I like that he's relatively low owned. I think I just wish he was lower owned. But 6% isn't bad. But those are really the only two players I'm looking at right now are Paolo and Wendell Carter Jr. All right, for the Hornets, not touching these guys. Absolutely not touching them. Miles Bridges is probable. Brandon Miller is probable. Nick Richards is questionable. Grant Williams is probable. Michigan is probable. So they're getting healthier. They don't have a lot to play for. They're facing one of the better teams in the NBA right now. I'm not taking a shot on them. All right, back to more interesting. Not really, actually. I don't love the Kings tonight. They're on the back end of a back-to-back. We played Fox yesterday. We played a little bit of Sabonis yesterday as well. That hit. I don't like playing teams going up against the Celtics. Yeah, pretty much just that. I don't like the game environment. I don't like the matchup. I think everyone's priced appropriately. Nothing stood out for me so far today. Celtics have some scenarios where we might be able to get a little bit more excited about playing some people. Jaylen Brown is questionable. Derek White is questionable, which is pretty big. It's pretty huge for this team. If both of them get ruled out, we are playing the Celtics tonight. If one of them get ruled out, I'm just going to take a shot on Jason Tatum. It's pretty much just that simple. If everyone's healthy, I'm not interested in this game. Reasons, I feel like everyone's priced appropriately. Matchup is relatively neutral. No one stood out to me so far in my early research. Nice game total, though. It's just two healthy teams going up against each other is tough, and we have a ton of actual value on the slate. And 10 games on the slate. Next up, we have the Pistons going up against the Magic. This is where things start to get a little sloppy and disgusting. But you got to do what you got to do. For the Pistons tonight, let me see. I'm looking through my notes trying to see what injury news we have. All right. Cade Cunningham is out. Taj Gibson, doubtful. Fontecchio, still out. And then they've had a few injuries of people who've been out for a long time this season. With Cunningham out, we can expect Marcus Sasser to start. That's why he's projecting so well. He's showing up in a lot of my lineups. I'm very comfortable having Marcus Sasser show up as a core play tonight. Malachi Flynn keeps things interesting because we saw what he did last time. But will that happen again? I don't know. I am a little nervous about Malachi Flynn. We've seen him have high ceiling performances and then flame out before. My game plan right now is really just to match the field with him. Just because the matchup is so soft, he should see plenty of minutes tonight. No reason for him not to be able to go out there and have another strong game. And so because of that, I just plan on ideally being around 30, 35%. If he ends up being a core play alongside Sasser, I really don't love that. So I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into this situation and make a stronger call. But for now, it's just planning on matching the field on them. And then the other possible value options, I'm not really considering, mostly because there's better value options on the other team in this game. I do think Jalen Duren is worth discussing. Matchup against the Grizzlies, not one to fear, especially with all the guys that they're missing. So guys like Duren, even Ivy could be a little sneakier, but again, just need to look a little bit deeper there. It's a 10-game slate, guys. It's hard to get super deep on all these teams at 12 o'clock, and especially when there's so many injury pieces we still don't know yet. We'll get there. We'll get there. Anyway, for the Grizzlies, Jaren Jackson Jr. is out. Luke Kennard is doubtful. Brandon Clark is out. John Concher is out. Desmond Bane is out because they have jack shit to play for. Santi Aldama is out. Those are a lot of starting players who are missing from this team, and that's why we're getting a lot of our value tonight from the Memphis Grizzlies. I think the guys that we're really expecting to see strong performances from are guys like Gigi Jackson, really just their starters, or the guys we're expecting to start tonight. Jake LaRavia, Lamar Stevens, Trey Jemison. Those are really the main pieces that you're seeing ownership on. Scottie Pippen Jr. is going a little under the radar, mostly because he hasn't been seeing as many minutes as some of the other starters. I do want to look a little bit closer into why that might be the case. I know he was battling an injury earlier on, but the matchup is soft here. He's relatively low owned in a really strong matchup where as long as the injury isn't what's limiting those minutes, he should see plenty of run tonight. So Scottie Pippen could be a little sneaky. Don't forget about him. But we're playing a lot of the Pacers. Jordan Goodwin's viable just because he should see plenty of minutes coming off the bench. And then I can't pronounce this player's name. Pereira, I don't know. He's another just small forward who should see plenty of run just because the Grizzlies are missing a lot of players. And so pretty much all of these cheapies are viable because they see minutes and the matchup is soft. And so this is the game where we should get a lot of our value from on this slate. Next up, we have the Knicks going up against the Bulls. I said it on yesterday's show. I personally did not love the Knicks as a play, especially if Josh Hart was playing. But the sim model was on them, and that's why we were able to get exposure to Dante DiVincenzo. That's why we got exposure to Josh Hart. And like I said yesterday, I am aware that I do not know everything. And so I'm willing to trust the sim model when it's pointing me in that direction. I, once again, still don't love the Knicks, but it likes Dante DiVincenzo and Miles McBride, and so I'll just match the field on them. If there's no injury news for the Knicks, I don't believe. Nothing new outside of the sad news about Randall yesterday. Let's see here. For the Knicks, we have, no one's really out. For the Bulls, they're relatively healthy at this point too. So just not a game I'm very excited about. Very low total as well. So just not a spot I'm trying to find reasons to force exposure to. You all know I don't love to pick on the Knicks too much. And once again, none of the Bulls are shining or standing out for me too much here either. For the Spurs, here we go again. I feel like every slate, everyone's like, I just need to play Victor Wembanyama every single slate. And then no one ever does. And I'm just like, okay, I guess I will if no one else is going to do it. We know the upside he has, even in tough matchups. It just really doesn't matter anymore. They don't have anything to play for, but I think he's really just trying to make his point that he should be Rookie of the Year or just that he's going to be dominant. I think he's already proven that, so I really don't know what he's playing for, but he's been great. And he's only 4% owned, and so I'll at least match the field and be at 5% ownership. Odds are relatively high. I'll just make him a leverage play and have 10, 15% exposure to him because he's been that good. I like him significantly more than Giannis. Mostly because Giannis has just been a pain in the ass this year. All right. And then for the Pelicans, we do have Zion Williamson listed as questionable. Rest of this injury news we've had for a while. This is pretty big. If Zion misses this game, pretty soft matchup going up against the Spurs. We can take shots on guys like Joval, Trey Murphy, who already are viable plays, but they are much stronger plays if Zion gets ruled out. CJ McCollum becomes a must play. Herb Jones, Najee Marshall become very viable as well. And so the Memphis Grizzlies could get some competition when it comes to value if Zion gets ruled out. And there's probably another player that might be in exclusions who I might be missing on. Herb Jones, Trey Murphy. I think Najee would probably start for Zion. So, I think Najee's the guy I'm thinking about that I would also just want some exposure to if Zion gets ruled out tonight. So, a lot of ifs, thens, but if Zion plays, I'm not playing the Pelicans. The Raptors are starting to get healthier, which is good for them. But from an actual DFS standpoint, it does not help us a lot. Let's see. What's their situation? We have Bruce Brown listed as questionable. That matters a good bit. RJ Barrett is available. Kelly O is available. So those are two starters for them who are now in. Abaji is still questionable. Gary Trent Jr. is questionable. The big piece for me that matters here is Gary Trent Jr. If Gary Trent Jr. and Bruce Brown miss this game, I start to get the itch a little bit to take a shot on RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly. Matchup is okay going up against the Bucks these days, but it's really just the increase in usage that would make me more interested in playing them. As of right now, we have better options on the slate than Barrett and Quickly, who are in just better matchups. But if that scenario happens, then they become more, viable options, like I always say. And then for the Bucks, Giannis is questionable. So we'll see if he plays. We know how huge that is for this team, especially in a soft matchup. So, like I said, I'm tired of playing Giannis this season. He just has not been as dominant from a DFS perspective. But if Giannis gets ruled out, the rest of the Bucks, I am completely comfortable playing here, and I will be significantly over the field on them just because I like picking on the Raptors that much. Damian Lillard is also questionable. That's huge. Patrick Beverley's questionable. If Damian Lillard and Patrick Beverley get ruled out, really, even if just Damian Lillard gets ruled out, that's a nice boost to Chris Middleton. There's even an increase in exposure that I would want in guys like Malik Beasley and Pat Connaughton if they both get ruled out. It's going to be a crazy 10-game slate, y'all. It's going to be a crazy 10-game slate, but the news, per usual, is going to be extremely important. But if everyone's healthy, even though it's a relatively high game total environment, I could consider taking shots on Lillard here, maybe Middleton, but really no one's standing out for me if everyone's healthy tonight. All right, for the Miami Heat going up against the Rockets, who had a tough night last night. This is a back-to-back for both of these teams, so no unfair advantage there. It's really just that the Rockets need to win these games or else they're not even going to make the play-in tournament. But it's really just looking like that's going to be the case. They're just not going to make it, which is fine. Let's see. For the Heat tonight, we have Tyler Hero listed as TBD. He might be making his return today. It's been a little bit. He did travel with the team, so it's looking relatively more likely he will be back. I'm not taking a shot on Tyler Hero. I expect him to be limited tonight to some extent. I think they're just trying to get him into game shape for the playoffs. Terry Rozier is also listed as TBD. None of the Heat are standing out for me, especially on a back-to-back. I don't like playing bigs on the back end of a back-to-back. Bam Adebayo, I could be talked into just because he's extremely low owned, but again, back end of a back-to-back, not my favorite situation to attack, but I'm going to put a like on him because I don't want to forget about him. That ownership is just a little bit too low for a game that should be pretty competitive, which is not something we can say about too many games on this slate. And then Jimmy Butler, similar case. He tends to play better in tighter, closer game environments, but don't think I'm going to pull the trigger there just yet. And then we'll go from there. For the Rockets, Amin Thompson's TBD. That's a pretty big deal. If he gets ruled out, there are potential value options we need to look at. That does make their starters in general just more viable. But I really don't want to dig too much into that. Might have to take another shot on Cam Whitmore, which honestly, I'm always fine with playing someone who hurt us the night before. So many people are going to be a little nervous about that I'm willing to do it. Dylan Brooks, never excited to play him. Fred VanVleet's really my only priority, and it's really just because of his price tag. The matchup's not great, but you can shoot threes against this Miami Heat team. And as long as he can get high at 7,900, that's very likely. But again, I like it a lot more if Amin Thompson gets ruled out because of the increase in usage. So we'll have to play that out. Oh, shit. We got that news power that Jaylen Brown and Derek White are out. It's going to be a crazy slate, guys. It's going to be a wild one because already the Celtics are way more interesting. With both of those two out, that's a boost to Tatum, Porzingis, Drew Holiday, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, especially whoever starts. Maybe both. I don't know. It's going to get crazy. And that's just one team. We could see another scenario like that with the Bucks. And we've talked about other teams who could have multiple people out. We already have Memphis. Oh, man, it's going to be a wild one. Thank you for that update, Power. I didn't see that come through. All right, let's move on to the Warriors. Warriors played last night, so they are on the back end of a back-to-back. The Mavericks also played last night, so once again, just like the Heat, still fair, no unfair advantage. Jonathan Kuminga is listed as questionable. Andrew Wiggins, well, he's TBD. Andrew Wiggins is also listed as TBD. Just like yesterday, those two pieces of information matter a lot for me. If Kuminga gets ruled out, I would do pretty much the same exact thing as yesterday. Force exposure to Clay, force exposure to Wiggins. If he plays, definitely going to force exposure to Tracy Jackson. And Draymond would get a nice boost for me as well, especially going up against the Mavericks, whose front court is always a little bit more susceptible. So the injury news, like all the other games, will impact a lot. The one guy I will make sure I have exposure to no matter what on this team is Draymond Green. Love the price tag. Love the matchup. You never really know what you're going to get from Draymond, if he's going to be aggressive enough offensively for us to have a strong DFS fantasy point score from him. But the peripheral stats will definitely be there. We just need him to be a little bit more aggressive in a softer matchup against the Mavericks. So we'll see. I just like his low ownership, and the sim model liked him as well. So that helped as well. And then the rest of this team will be purely determined upon injury news. Mavericks are looking pretty healthy. Greg Brown III is listed as TBD. Don't think that matters at all. Once again, the only player I'm looking to force exposure to here is Doncic, and none of the other Mavs are standing out for me. So yeah, guys, crazy freaking slate. It's gonna be one where Brandon and I will both be on the pre-lock show, and so we're gonna talk through exactly what we're doing in the DS on this one. Hopefully, we get some more injury news, just so we have some clarity and can make some decisions live. I know here lately we've still had some questionable tags going into the pre-lock show, and that's been a bit unfortunate, but it's going to be interesting slate. There's a lot of ways to get different on a 10 gamer. That's always the case. But there's also some plays that we've talked about on this show already that I like a good bit. And especially guys like Victor, who no one else chooses to play ever. But all right, y'all. I appreciate y'all. No show. Pre-lock show will be at 5:30 p.m. with Brandon and I. No show over the weekend. No show on Monday because there's no games on Monday. But I'll be back on Tuesday. Guys, we're almost at the playoffs. That's when things get fun again. Can't wait. No show because no games, Raz. No show, no games. All right. Talk to y'all later. Be safe. Bye.